Hi, it's Peter Newman here with you, and I'm joined by Marcel from Bushel Plus in Canada. And Marcel is going to tell us a little bit about his system and what they've found with harvest losses, and in particular canola harvest losses in Canada. So, how are you, Marcel?
Hey, good. Thank you. Thank you very much for making the time and inviting us here. That's great.
Yeah, thanks for joining us. Yeah, you guys are a few years ahead of us when it comes to harvest losses, I think. We're just starting to measure, but you've been at it for a little while there. So, going to just tell us a little bit about your system and how you got into it, Marcel, and I'll chip in with a few questions as we go.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. So the system is called the Bushel Plus system. And the division where we are right now, we obviously want to make more money for every farmer with safety first in mind. And where this is coming from is really over the last few years. I was born and raised on a small 3-hectare farm in Germany. Used to work for Klaas, the combine manufacturer, university agronomy degree on various different projects in Eastern Europe. And I spent a couple seasons in Russia dialing in harvesting equipment for John Deere and New Holland. So really the system and what we're doing these days comes a lot from that experience, working with a lot of different combine specialists around the world, trying to set up harvesters better and reduce combine harvest loss, and then overall to make it safer for the farmer and the operator, because we used to run beside the machine trying to throw a pan underneath, and then once people start tripping or falling, that is no fun anymore. So that's really where the whole idea is coming from. So back in the day, we used to scratch on the ground a lot and trying to figure out our losses and dug in various conditions. But it's really hard, as you can see here on the ground, especially with dark canola on black soil. It's tough to see some of those kernels. It's tough to really measure and put a number to it, what is going on. You can see if it's a lot or a little bit less, but it's hard to really put a number to it. So and then while we're working on those farms, most of those combines, harvesters I should say, had telematic systems on there. So we were able to see what the combine settings were, and also see what the losses were. So we had maps of the losses. But we figured out two things. The drivers weren't changing their combine settings for quite a few days. They set it once, or maybe even factory settings, and kept driving with it. The second thing is that we had those loss maps, which looked really great, but when your loss monitor, loss sensors are not calibrated properly, those loss maps really don't tell you anything. So those were two of those points where we said, in order to use all this technology that are in the harvester, we still have to ground truth it with a pan in the field. So in order to make it quick and easy, there's no bolts or wiring required on the harvester or on the front, so we can attach it to different areas on the machine. You just have to walk up to it, you attach it with two magnets, either underneath the back axle, underneath the feeder house. If you have a wide body machine and really long stubble conditions, that's a nice place to drop a tray from, because your drop tray doesn't get, or the stubbles won't touch the tray then because it's higher up. And you can also attach it to the front. So how that works is we have our cover that you can see here in silver that attaches the two magnets to the combine, and inside there, nested inside, is sitting our drop tray. That is a tray that actually falls onto the ground. It's nested inside that tray because you don't want to have any chaff or kernels falling in the tray before you take your measurement. Otherwise, you would start to screw up your sample and wouldn't get an accurate sample that way. So when we drop it, it falls down and it's empty. You see two different kind of loss trays here. You can insert either or. We have a wider one for shorter stubble conditions. And if you work in longer stubble conditions or faster harvester speeds, where the large one maybe falls down and tips over on you, you can always use a more narrow pan, which falls nicer in between some straight cut canola, stubble, or hemp, depending where you are. So every customer always gets both trays, because we are operating worldwide by now, and the stubble is different from here to our neighbor's farm 10 miles down the road. So every farmer has always both. The other thing we ran into in the past is running around and trying to save time. So we used to sit there and try to screen the sample by hand or sieves, which took us a lot of time. So we started building our air separator, which is operated with a battery as well. So both devices are battery operated, rechargeable. You can carry them wherever you want. You can take the air separator right to the field. You dump the entire content of the tray into the air separator and turn the air separator on, and it cleans your sample literally within seconds. Depending how much is in the tray, you may have to do it twice, but it's a very efficient way to do it more. And customers saying, you know, it's so easy and quick to do. Now we're actually checking more often because it makes sense and saves us so much time.
Yeah, I was out today, Marcel, and I was using a different type of tray, and like your photo there shows, it actually filled up on the back axle as we were harvesting. So I had to then put it on the front axle, and I've made an air separator myself, but it's not as good as yours. But yeah, I think like you say, it's got to be quick and it's got to be easy if we're going to do this at harvest. So I think you're onto something there.
Yeah, that's good because we all know how it is. As I said before, we don't have time to screw around. We want to get going, and some harvest windows in countries are really short. So we have to be as efficient as possible. And as you said already, this picture here, you can see exactly why we have the hooded design. The tray drops, it's clean, is protected from any chaff or kernels that will fall from the axle, or even from the machine. Even if you put it underneath the feeder, underneath the feeder house or underneath the front axle, there's still stuff floating around and falling off the machine here and there. So we did a lot of research with this. We did a lot of trial and error ourselves while we're doing custom combining and playing around with our prototypes the last few years. So there's a reason why we offer it the way it is right now. Here's the example of our narrow drop tray, especially if you have canola stubble and you have travels with a tray that's tipping over and it's large. So as you can see here in the farmer's hand, it's more narrow. It fits nicer in between. The picture on the very right-hand side here is hemp stubble in northern Canada. Very tall stubble, tough stubble to go through. So this is really nice if it slides through and you can still take an accurate reading that way. And again, the separator, just there, dump the entire sample in, turn it on, and clean your sample right in the field. What's also nice, if you have windrows, as you see in the picture in the back behind the farmer, you can take our red trays, shove it underneath the canola swath, shake a sample into it, and clean the sample with a separator right in the field. We really like this out here for taking just moisture readings before we get the combine to the field, because some of our fields are quite far away from our customers. There's various things people can do. So now when we're talking about the harvester setup, there's one question that splits the world in half, and that is dropping the straw or spreading the straw while you're measuring combine harvest loss.
Yeah.
So that's the reason why we supply our system with measurements and calculations for spreading the straw and dropping the straw. Because again, it kind of divides the world there. So now you have the opportunity to attach it to the front or to the harvester and measure either what your spinners or your chaff spreaders are spitting out to the sides or what they're putting out down in the middle. And we have found, and it's not just from our own research, also with a lot of product specialists, either from the dealers we work with or from the corporate companies, from the major manufacturers, that yes, it's great to measure when you're dropping it in the windrow, but once you put it back to spreading the straw, depending on your combine model, the inside of the harvest, sorry when I say combine, I mean harvester.
That's okay. No, we understand. That's all right. Combine's fairly commonly used, so people understand.
It is okay.
Yeah.
Not header as much anymore.
Oh, we all call it a header, but people would know what you mean. It's okay.
Okay, right
We
on. That's
speak
that's
Canadian.
good. Okay. Um, so it conditions changing inside, and that means that things could look all of a sudden a heck of a lot different as when you were dropping the straw. So when you set up the entire header and the harvester for dropping it in the windrow, checking your losses, changing everything over, and then drive all day without checking it again. Um, we've seen some problems with that. So that's why we like to double check both things. And the system is so versatile that the farmer can do either or. And at the end of the day, in my opinion, a farmer has to be confident in how he measures. Like, in the end of the day, it doesn't matter how he measures it. He has to be confident in that the method that he's using is sufficient for his equipment and for his farm operation. So I'm really hesitant of saying there's only one way. There is no black and white in anything in the world, and there is no black and white in harvesting. So really, you have to check a couple different spots behind the combine or behind the header. You have to check a couple different ways, not just dropping a tray, doing power stops, things like that, looking inside. And so it needs to be really versatile in order to make a decision that way. And
Yeah.
that is the reason why it's offered the way it is.